So before we started recording, you were telling me about how you really respect people who smoke crack, and you think I should get into it, Dan. Do you want to say more? Maybe elaborate on your thesis?
Yeah, they're some of the hardest working people out there because crack costs money, and to get money you gotta work, and they will be working to get that crack.
So you think I should get into it? You think it would help? Because actually where this started was TikTok, which you think I should get into, and I was saying that the show would stop coming out if I got access to unlimited animal videos.
I'd say this. I think potentially you would find a way to perfectly optimize your monetary income through Dice Funk if you became addicted to crack.
Why do you say that?
Because you'll need it to buy more crack.
Okay. So you're saying it would force me. It would be like necessity is the mother of invention, and that
exactly.
Once I didn't have a choice, I would have to monetize. You know what's funny? I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's really refreshing how Dice Funk doesn't have 10,000 ads. It's just the show. What a shame that would be, where every 5 minutes they'd be like, oh yeah, so stranger pulls out the sickle, and have you thought about better health? You're getting your mental health right today with just this coupon code for 10% off.
You gotta weave it into the story, right? Where someone's having a really bad time, like they've gone through something traumatic. Let's see here. What horrific things have happened this right after Hialeah exploding, then we go call better health.
How much do you think we could get away with that?
You could I think it would work maybe 3 times before people realize it's not a bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they would give us the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, that was a funny parody of an ad. And then we could cash those checks until we get caught. But then I'd be tempted to do, I would be like, oh, this is the mattress arc. Interestingly, you're fighting a mattress elemental. And then it'd be like, we should talk to our sponsor, Casper Mattresses.
Oh, well, here's what you do. It's the biome of sleep and dreams. That's how you weave it in. You have to design a season around product placement, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's the slippery slope. That's unfortunately the siren's call of the ad money. So I'm glad we don't have any of those factors, and we're instead only pressured by our extremely stupid sense of humor.
Speak for yourself. Any advertisers you want me to slyly mention your content? Slide me a crisp $20 bill.
That's your price, $20. You don't even need you couldn't go to Five Guys with $20. What do you mean?
Well, Austin, I'm not the main person who's editing the show, so I'm not going to have as large of an asking price. I can't sneak as much in there as other people.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to get one by me, go big, There's people who get busted for, political corruption, and it's always, $10,000 or something. It's not worth the jail time. You got to shoot for the moon.
I go on, a long monologue, but it goes on so long that I just sneak an entire ad for let's say Manscaped in there and just hope you don't notice because you got bored and tuned out.
Yeah, I think we're here today to talk about Stranger. This is a pilot episode of what Crew Gunk is after we've gone through all the player characters and we have some hindsight. So we started with Stranger, and I guess my first question, sponsored by Faith and Valor, a burnt grill plate from a Korean BBQ, and eardrum espresso is, what ad would you try to sneak past everyone else in this show using Stranger as a platform?
I mean, it would have to be an ad for Spirit of Halloween, right?
Oh, yeah. So you got your latest spookiest costumes. It's funny, we actually almost kind of did that in season 8 when there was a closed down Spirit Halloween in town, but it didn't paint them in a favorable light. I think we burned it down or something.
Oh no. Well, I don't think Spirit of Halloween's closed down. They're like hermit crabs. They infest other things, leftover shells.
Yeah. So you think it'd be fine that the advertisers wouldn't get upset at that because they'd be like, no, that's kind of in the spirit of our thing.
I think that's fair.
But yeah, I don't know if we're gonna have enough questions for the whole thing because there's still more Stranger content to go. But I thought we'd try this out, and if we run out of Stranger talk, we can always dip back into some of your previous characters and so forth. So I guess I'll just say the next question: Joseph Tombrello, Simon Lee, conduit of Chungus, bearer of Dinkus, minion of John Con, and Juman Jack. How are you feeling about Stranger at this point in the season? We are through 4 dry arcs, and how has he changed from where you thought he would be, like at this point?
I honestly wish he changed more than he really has. I think I've tended to create characters who have like a bit of an arc in mind, but they're kind of a developed set person already. Maybe that's because I'm a bit too immutable myself. Like he's grown to like people on this island and stuff though, but I don't think his necessary like worldview has really changed very much, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, you came in with like goals and priorities. You're like, I want to do what's best for my home, and everything you've done has been motivated by that. So, I mean, I've enjoyed, you say immutability, I would say focus.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of like they're like static characters or transformative characters. I don't know if that would be the right word for it. Like I think Buford had, like, just to compare, had more of an arc than Stranger really has had in this season. But Stranger's story is more about reacting to everything happening around, and then acting as like the counterbalance to Lillian's exuberant positivity.
Yeah, I mean, comparing to Buford is a great one. That was going to be my next question. Sponsored by Polite Crow, asking if you might kindly open the bin for a little rummage. Nephesticity of the Queer Sheep has a new tattoo and can almost quit. Casting credits are amazing. And Extellaris, what has been the difference between the 2 seasons where you played, big characters for the whole season? Has there been like any different approach between Buford and Stranger, or is it all part of your guy who doesn't fuck kind of paradigm?
Okay, man, I really walked myself into this scenario, this title, haven't I? So I guess Buford, I had way more of like an idea of who he was coming into it. Like I knew who he, like, personality wise, how he would act and respond to everything. Stranger's a little bit more vague. Like I had goals in mind. I wasn't necessarily sure how he was going to come out, like, being played personality wise, and then everyone was like, oh, he's vaguely threatening in everything he did, and I was like, well, that's kind of fun. What if I just keep doing that?
Yeah, I mean, you have both your characters, I would say, are notably more forward and violent than a lot of their party members. Are you thinking about switching it up for a later season? Maybe you be the Sarah archetype character who's like, oh, I don't know about this one, guys. Oh.
Yeah, so Buford is obviously the more violent of the two. I think both of them, I would say the similarity is that Buford is directly actively hostile to any threat. Stranger is more willing to just be like, well, what's the like, what are we doing here? We're in the brave new world, so to speak, a new frontier, and we're pretending like laws matter. Like, what's happening? What are we doing? But is, of course, way more willing to compromise than someone like Buford. I would say in the future I'm very much open to a friendly, or more compromise focused character. That's normally what I tend to play. Honestly, outside of this, it's just two scenarios back to back where I played a psychopath followed by someone who's like, well, we're being threatened. Why are we putting up with this?
Are you like the sweet baby, reasonable, kind person in most play groups, but you just happen to find your way onto the show where everyone is extremely sweetheart coded baby?
I think to an extent I get like really into the mindset of the character I'm trying to play. So if I try to play someone who is nice, I will almost certainly end up trying to avoid every conflict from there out if I can.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like, how someone who's inherently adverse to conflict isn't going to be really open to, killing someone. Mm-hmm. But if someone like, Stranger or Buford is going to be like, absolutely, like, what's another body? Like, who cares? What are we doing? I'm not going to quibble over every broken egg.
Yeah, I mean Dungeons and Dragons is a combat focused game. I feel like the average Dice Funk cast member does not engage in that much combat. I don't know the last time I took a bonus action to pummel someone. So
I would say there is something to be said that yes, I am probably picking to be a more aggressive character, at least to an extent, because of the party I'm in. Maybe not so much Buford, because I wasn't really sure what I was getting into there. I mean, also Wendy was pretty aggressive at times
sure.
as well. But with Lillian and Hylia and to an extent Miss Killings, I this is just me. If like a scene isn't moving along, I feel a need to like do something, and that often is escalate to a threat.
Yeah, I mean, I've played both Wendy and Hylia, specifically being, I know all of my players, my fellow cast members, tend to compromise and find a reasonable common ground and be nice. And I want to be someone who has like a goal and is willing to hurt people to get it, because I think that'll mix it up and add some drama. So that's definitely a consideration. Let's next question by concept champion of the crab salute. Lime and C.A. Little, both of your characters came in with kind of secrets. So Buford obviously had a severed head that you had been torturing, which had a bunch of ramifications. And Stranger was, as he said in his own words, vibe checking the vibe checkers, perhaps to cull them if they were a threat. How do you feel about playing a character with a secret like that? Is it a big burden, or is it something you love to do and are hoping to do again? Or is it maybe you needing a little break from it?
So Buford's thing actually happened by accident. It was never originally intended to be something that like came up in the season. It was originally a thought experiment of what is the worst thing he's ever done to someone. Because I was trying to get into the mindset of I made him in the mind of he is Adam Smasher. He is the villain of someone else's story.
Yeah.
So what would be the worst thing he would do to someone, and why would he do it? And then Laura brought up the idea that, hey, there are some illithids who feel a need to feel suffering when they are taking over a body. Oh, this idea I had here, I can now loop into this. It hasn't been brought up before, and I haven't talked to Laura about it. Let me run this by her and see what she says. And she went, that sounds great. And we just kind of looped it in from there. Stranger was built with that, and Stranger was built with that secret in mind, because I figured, okay, I don't really know what to build for this season, really, as a character. I'm not that big into plants. I don't go outside much. Nature scares me. I'm allergic to most pollen. But I can work with the idea of, bringing things back to life. And I can also then tease a little bit of season 13 with that. What would work for this? And the best thing that would work for this is, hey, these people have control over life and death. What is going on here, and are they a threat to X group of people? So it was a fun kind of secret, I guess, to put in place. I would potentially do something like this again. I don't know when I would. It just really depends on, I guess, the story that is being told in that season.
Yeah. I know some people who go into like role play sessions with like completely blank minds, like nothing planned, just trying to see where everything goes, and other people who have like 10-page lore documents. And I like you often go towards the latter, but I do like that you're not inflexible, like you do roll with things. So that's really good.
I tend to, I think, start with like a minimal outline that then gets built up over time. Like I think I originally said that Throg's backstory was written 4 weeks into recording, and that's often what happens to me. I have like a rough idea of who this person is, and then as things go on, I come up with like events in their history and their backstory that would build upon and make them more of who they are there.
Yeah. So next question, sponsored by Christman, finally changing his Patreon name, Squishy Fishy and Marine Science Guy. Where we are in the story, 4 arcs through, White the Storm Giant is about to return to the island. You have resolved to fight him to the death with your brother Harvest. Is there anything you would have done differently? And how disappointed are you that we didn't get to fight this really cool character who seems really badass? See, like he's basically on our side at this point. I was kind of hoping to see what kind of cool moves he had, what kind of legendary actions.
I think it would have been interesting if Harvest came in direct, conflict with the party in some way, shape, or form. What would I have done differently? Uh, I think there are points where I had ideas of stuff to say and plotted out what I wanted to say. Like when I had Stranger reveal that he was here to vibe check everyone else on the island, right? Bit of, I guess, behind the scenes, a peek behind the curtain. We had to record that twice due to a recording issue.
Oh
And
yeah.
I do feel like the first time I did it was fundamentally better in how it was role played in that moment. And then I kind of tripped over myself on the second half. Just in my own estimation, I don't know how true that really is. That's what
Uh,
it felt like to me. Um, I I do think I should have had Stranger interacting with more people on the island in general up to this point, but it's a lot of like, where is the time for it, right?
mhm.
Because we spend a lot of time in an alternate dream reality inside of a tree. So we have a limited amount of space to develop like relationship with other characters. So I kind of had to pick and choose, and since I had this backstory character set up to be part of like a potential conflict and to appease, went with Harvest at that point. Although do think we got some nice conversations with Parks.
Yeah, we haven't, I don't think, talked about that half of the episode we lost before, which was the first one where Commodore Cassidy shows up. I think I was like during that conversation with him getting off the boat that you lost your audacity or something. So we had everything before that, but we lost the second half of the episode that you had to record. I think that was your first time ever losing any audio. I don't know if you want to speak to how hellish that was.
Yeah, it was a giant stress. I was so fucking pissed. I was deeply, deeply upset because there wasn't like any like pop up from Audacity that had happened. It just randomly stopped halfway through with no warning. I think to an extent it worked out a little bit for the better. Another peek behind the scenes. Cassie's original name was Daniel, and it got very confusing.
Yeah, that's one of the only parts I regret losing was the part where we kept pretending like we didn't know who was being referred to when Quinn said that.
Yeah,
Um,
you were pretending. I wasn't.
but yeah, I think originally we were going to just have you re-record what you said, and then we decided to just re-record the whole thing, starting with Cassidy's arrival. I don't think it's noticeable in the episode. No one said anything, but yeah, it's like the part where Quinn says, a Minotaur steps off the boat. Like there's a split between two different recording sessions there. If you're interested.
And he was also a big lion man first.
Yeah, no, the audience doesn't need to know that. too far behind the scenes. No, that is a fun detail. Maybe that's why you come to Crew Gunk is for stuff like that. Between the two sessions, I asked Quinn if it could be a Minotaur instead because cat people are going to be a huge thing in my half of season 13, and I like already had like a big like cat paladin kind of plan. So I was just if Quinn would have been like, no, it's important to me that Cassidy is a cat. I would have been like, okay, that's fine. It's not the hugest deal. It's just a thing I floated.
No
Like
kitty mandatory.
yeah, I was just like, if we have to re-record anyway, I was just like, would it be a problem? Crew Gunk exclusive. Cassidy switched creature types. Next question, sponsored by Brent. Still every episode of Dice Funk Goatly, a werewolf is broke as fuck and hating it, and the space fighters. Would Buford and Stranger get along? Would they be friends? Would they smoke together?
I don't think so. I think Stranger would be amused by Buford lying to himself pretty often, and Buford would fucking hate how much Stranger waxes poetic.
Damn. I thought they were pretty similar character types. I was imagining them just chilling out and being like, yeah, it's really annoying when some fucking idiot tries to fuck with your family and I love to murder them.
I think they would work well together. I do not think they would like each other.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious because we've only seen a couple of your characters compared to like the 11 of Laura's or whatever we've seen, so I'm still gonna get a handle on all of your eccentricities with your character types. But I do really like the ones you've done so far, and I'm pretty excited for. I actually know like the next two you're gonna do.
Yeah, I think the next season's isn't as like different necessarily as it could be. 13 is probably the bigger divergence from the type of characters I've played thus far.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I think the 12 and 13 are gonna be quite a contrast.
Although then again, I also played Throg, who is basically just acting as a paladin in all but class, in all but actual class.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I haven't really brought him up that much. I guess is there anything you want to say about your season 9 character?
Yeah, Throg is pretty close to how I generally play like a lot of like good aligned characters. Although I think I even wrote that Stranger was originally like neutral good. He was just kind of like a Darwinian asshole. Someone who's like, hey, there's a lot of hard stuff in the world. I'm gonna do my best to help people, but at the end of the day, some people gotta die.
Yeah. Next question sponsored by Seiko, president of the White Wolf Max and Zoe fan club. And finally, and vibe checkers more like vibrators, buzz. How have you felt about playing a druid this season? I know that there was a specific transformation you were really excited to get to, and I actually at one point petitioned Quinn to add another arc before White returns because I was like, I don't think Dan has got to all the animals he wants to turn into.
I was very happy to finally reach that transformation. I will say, between Buford and Stranger, they both have had this like weird issue where they are spellcasters, but it is almost always worse for them to cast a spell than to just hit someone. And Druids also really showed me how like little content WotC actually puts out. There are so few beasts that you can actually transform into, and I took the type of druid that gets extra beasts, and most of them just aren't very good, at least in terms of like combat.
Yeah, I know that originally they were playing around with for the next player's handbook. I think they eventually walked this back, but they were like just gonna have the druid have like a battle form, which is like the same, and you can just flavor it whatever animal you want, so they didn't have to juggle like the dozens of possible animals. Have you been following the development of one D&D 1?
Whatever I get on TikTok, which is some of it.
What is it on? Is it people doing little dances, or they're like, it's the book is full price. Much of the information has already been released, but there's no discount. While doing like a little dance.
Sometimes it's just clips of their YouTube videos that have been thrown up on there. Yeah, I mean that's also how they've handled like summoning spells before, where instead of you're summoning a specific kind of undead or a beast, you get like, this is the air beast, this is the water beast, this is the land beast.
Yeah.
And it's just a mildly different stat block every time. I get it. I don't necessarily think it's that interesting. Maybe this is because I'm coming off of like stuff like Pathfinder 3.5, which have hundreds, if not thousands, of options for nearly anything. And they also, Pathfinder, just to give an example, has a class called the Summoner, where you just build a custom summon. Like, it's from the ground up. You build a creature.
Wow. I mean, that does sound more like interesting mechanically, but I don't know if it's the best fit for our show. Has there been like a has there been like an adjustment period for things where you're like at a tabletop game that isn't being recorded? I would have done this completely differently.
Yeah, like a Pathfinder game, I would not try to do as a audio only podcast. There's way too much going on. It also is so mandatory for a grid to really be used for it. That I will say that was also part of this is I guess an issue I have. I'm very much I read the rules and then follow the rules. I don't necessarily have a good ability to always like reflavor something or think that, hey, this isn't really how it's meant to be used. Can I use it like this? So it just won't occur to me. And a lot of like druid abilities are very specific and like grid based effects that I think I end up going, well, that doesn't really apply here and doesn't really function with how we run the show, so I'm just not going to pay attention to it. To give a good example of this, the only reason I played Buford in the last season was because I went, well, you can't play an Illithid in D&D. That's not a real race.
And then I did that immediately.
Yeah, if someone had told me ahead of time before I like made a character and got art commission, hey, you could be an Illithid, I would have probably played a Eleutherid.
Yeah, I mean, this show, I try to never say no to anyone. Honestly, probably to my detriment. So I guess people sometimes say no to themselves first.
I never turned into a Brontosaurus. That could have been cool.
Chase Sterling, Tara is giving money to say hi to all the cats, and Egon, God of Death, sponsor for the next question. So we are at the end of the fourth arc. We just did the one with Raiso, the general. You are kind of unique, and you've been very, stranger, I guess, parentheses you, has been very withholding with the vibe checks. Do you want to walk us through the logic of any of these? Because it seems like you basically said no to all of them. Is that just stranger, or how does Dan feel as well?
So I didn't even really mean that to be strangers thing, necessarily. I walked into it a little bit after what is it, Slater's vibe, Slater and Pofo's vibe check, right? Where
Yeah.
he screams at Miss Killings like, "Give me a reason for someone to actually come back." Originally, my idea for him was that he was generally speaking negative on people coming back, because it's like you're rewriting the laws of nature to do this, right? On a whim. But also I wanted him to like advocate for like monstrous beings that like on their face would probably get less of a chance to come back because they don't resemble or act on a normal like human focused worldview, right? Didn't necessarily come up as much, and then from the people we've had, it going back to like what I said about his killings, what's really like the for stranger to go, why does this person deserve more than anyone else really to come back? Like what makes this person special? What do they even have to come back to? That's not necessarily how Dan would treat this. I would be agonizing over this decision. I think probably most people should come back, and I do probably agree that what is it? Choosing to not bring someone back is tantamount to murder, especially if you view it as like medical care, right? You're actively choosing to deny someone life-saving treatment, in effect, because you don't like them, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it's, some you can have so many different opinions on it in and out of character. It's a juicy topic, and I've gotten, messages from people saying that like the season's been kind of emotionally hard because of like the experiences in their own life that are like too real, and it's like wow, it's really touching people. But I mean, obviously, I hope it's also a very funny show. But I'm glad to hear that you've given it a lot of thought.
Yeah, and I guess in another season with like a different set of people who were being vibe checked, I could very easily see Stranger agreeing to bring more people back. I think it's just kind of the nature of the people who we have vibe checked. It ends up being a case like, well, he doesn't see any reason for them. I think there's also like a bit of obstinance in him. Like Raiso, Lillian made a deal to bring the general back. Yeah. And I think to an extent he would feel obligated to say no at that point, because yeah. What is the point of this entire process if people are making deals? And granted, he's been a hypocrite in places like that himself. He wanted Pofo brought back in part because it benefits him. But I think he has complicated feelings on that, because at the end of the day, there is no unbiased arbiter of this. There never will be.
I love how corrupt we've all been. We've all been so biased. We've all cut deals. It's pretty funny. It's because it's just like, yeah, having the power over life and death is too much for a person to wield responsibly, and we've all, fallen prey to use it to our own advantage. So I do like that. I think the thing on the show is often players don't want to get yelled at. Like we don't want people to be mad at us, so we try to do the quote unquote right thing. We try to like win the season, but I do like that almost everyone has gotten their hands dirty. In fact, next question sponsored by Mickelvain, Spirit of Gender, Shrug, they greater than she greater than he, 666 Neopets 666, and I upped my donation so Austin can have a family and you should too. Tell me about the possible stranger villain arc. So you were saying that if people were a threat to your home, that you could maybe take them out. There was an argument that, the Harvest was going to turn villain, or that, you know, it was genuinely on the table that White kind of representing people who didn't think that the whole rebirth system should exist. You could team up with him. What was on the table as far as you being an antagonist? Would you have had the heart to strike Lillian down?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, to be fair, I probably wouldn't be a player character at that point. Stranger would have, gone away and become an NPC, and I'd be playing, I don't know, Parks, maybe? Then. But yeah, and it was really a case of like, look, he's here to see how this pans out. And I think what you can point to is the situation that you set up with the Coral Kingdom in the first or second arc, right?
Yeah, second arc. This is my next question too. You're anticipating me. You're so clever.
Where it's like, look, what you're doing is creating an active threat to the Coral Kingdom. You're potentially going to bring someone back who could completely upend our political revolution. And from Stranger's perspective, what you're doing here could result in Harvestkin potentially randomly dying, or people seeing them as like a resource to go hunt, to bring people back if they are a ideologue. It's an existential and literal threat that he also finds to an extent like culturally repugnant. So of course he's going to do whatever he needs to ensure that this place is not a threat, be it what ended up happening, which is, cutting deals and finding out that he won't just immediately die if someone managed to bring part of him back, or the other option, which is, okay, I guess I have to try to burn this tree to the ground. Both were, and this is also, I guess, something I've tried to get across with Stranger. Where he is from, he has, friends and stuff, but at the end of the day, you can lose a friend fast in the means of in the name of survival. Like you only have so long to mourn in a dangerous world.
So you raised a couple of questions there. One is, what class would Parks be if you played him?
Oh, that's a good question. Hold on, let me look at D&D Wiki dot. Like the obvious answer is Artificer, but I already did that.
Sure.
So that doesn't really work there.
It would have to be like a hospitality artificer. You wouldn't have a big metal punch arm.
Yeah, that doesn't really fit there. Monk is funny, but we already have one of those.
Another thing I was going to say is that we never said this on air. Maybe it's implied, but you and Quinn didn't coordinate whether or not the Well of Resurrection was a threat to Harvestkin, right? Like that was as much a mystery to you as it was to everyone in the setting?
Yeah, I think like I talked to Quinn saying like, hey, here's probably how I would react to all of these scenarios. Just to give her an idea of like, here's what I would potentially do. But beyond that, like just casual chatting, she gave me no indication on what would occur.
Okay, that's what I assumed, and I think, I don't like to second guess people, but I think Quinn probably made the right decision, because if the well is an existential threat, that kind of forces your hand as a character.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is I think how I would have handled it as well. But it's never
the
clear.
answer, by
to
the
me.
way, is Clockwork Soul Sorcerer.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty fun, because I think the creator of Parks was some kind of magic user too. Did you get the sense that there was something we missed there? Like I should have dug deeper, or do you think that Quinn was like, no, it's just the mysterious wizard?
It does feel like there was something else there, maybe be it a reference to a character from a previous season that I'm not getting. But I would have assumed that potentially there was something. But what like dialogue tree we had to go down for that, I do not know.
Yeah, I like that sometimes we miss things. It makes it feel like there's possibilities in the world. If we get every single dialogue option, then it's like we may as well have just watched a movie,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next question, sponsored by Dust in Dark Water. A gambling pig has no regrets except for most of his 20s, and Miles and Danny love Dice Funk forever. I'm sure you've been listening to all the wet episodes. If a stranger had been a character over there, if you had turned into a pumpkin fish and taken part in those things, is there anything you would have done differently over there? How does Stranger, now that we've been farther in the season, feel about the Coral Kingdom conflict or the elf navy conflict or any of those things? Because I know you're someone who has big lore thoughts, and you didn't get your hand on a bunch of balls.
So Stranger would have probably sided with Kilpatrick in that scenario, if only because my understanding of the situation was that it was actually Coral Kingdom soldiers fighting the I don't know what to call them, the monarchists, rather than shooting up actual town members, and the monarchists actively tried to kill the team.
So yeah, the idea was that there was like a civil war. It was anarchist versus monarchists in the streets of Zolfo, and I was surprised by how the players took it really personally. Like they, like a couple people took a swing at them, but I wasn't prepared for how like I don't know what the word I'm looking for was, like how disgruntled they became by that.
I think Stranger's viewpoint would have been, well, I can't trust that the monarchists will actually follow through any deal we make to just put her in the queue, because they've already actively tried to bypass it once, under like threat of death, essentially. And I think that the Coral Kingdom and Kilpatrick are making good points about who potentially should have a right in bringing someone back or not. Stranger doesn't necessarily have like, I don't know, a vested horse in who. Well, maybe that's not true. How do I want to put this?
I mean, I will say that, like, in the sense that all of the wet arcs are based on classic Western films, that the two factions fighting in the streets is Fistful of Dollars, which of course is inspired by Akira Kurosawa classic Yojimbo, which is what I was trying to evoke there, where basically the protagonist makes the two sides destroy each other. So I don't know if that's adds any context to what I was going for there.
Yeah, I think just out of raw pragmatism, he would have probably seen Kilpatrick as the better and safer deal at the end of the day, and would have tended towards that angle.
Yeah, and where we are in recording right now, it isn't clear to me how many ramifications there are for them killing Seneschal Kilpatrick. I feel like siding with the monarchists was like a bigger choice than even they realized. So I'd be curious if so there was a more of an advocate for them present, how that could have gone. So just something to think about.
And I believe Stranger has at a few points now, if not potentially on, has pointed out, like, look, we can't pretend that we have like a huge moral high ground here. People on this island and below it have actively killed a child. So like this happened. Like, you can give your reasoning for it. You still did it.
Yeah. I mean, in this arc, literally the elf navy problem is met by extreme violence from Wet Team. They just slaughter their asses. And then I think coming up, there's a downtime conversation where they talk about the banana baron, and I think Stranger's just like, yeah, kill him. Fucking kill his ass. So I feel at least you're morally consistent there.
Yeah, and Stranger would have probably taken the same tact with the elf navy. It's like, hey, you're actively threatening me. You've already passed like the line of just like prodding hostilities. I'll swing back. Who cares? Like, what's the point here? Why are we disguising what we're doing here? Just kill each other in the streets.
Next question, sponsored by a good Brent, Twitter bitch for Let's Talk About Snacks podcast, Midlife Stasis, Conduit of Inevitability, and Dr. Goatman. Now that we are post Hyalea explosion, can you remember how long ago that was? Jeez. I know, I'm sorry, I'm asking you a lot of what would you have done differently questions. If Hyalea had told you her plan up front, what would that have changed? I kept it from you, or from both of you, I think for really good dramatic reasons. But obviously, I want to be a good friend to you. If I was really a tree and you were really a pumpkin, I would tell you, Dan. How would that have helped? Or would I have still exploded and everything would have been basically the same?
I think Stranger would have still not necessarily understood why you agreed to take a deal that would result in you exploding. I don't think either. To be honest, he or myself saw the benefit in that scenario. Even if you're knew from the get go, I'm not going to complete this. But he would have then potentially agreed with the idea of not allowing Cassidy to do XYZ. I know Hylia, I think voiced irritation that he didn't just agree with her on that immediately.
Yeah.
There would have been more collusion at that point, and then he probably would have been more open to saying, "Hey, here's why I'm here. If you're making deals like this, make a deal with me, and then we can like put a better front forward rather than everyone kind of all secretly having an agenda, and also Lillian is there."
I mean, out of character, I'll say the phenomenal cosmic powers that Hylia got, I guess, maybe aren't clear to explain because it's like it's just like for Hylia's own edification. I guess she did get the ability to give out, warlock levels, but it is like a intellectual satisfaction that I guess doesn't really make a lot of sense if you're not the one getting the information. But like I think it was like dramatically worth it. I think the reveal of her deception was like one of my favorite things to roleplay. Everyone was so flabbergasted. I loved how how you reacted to it.
Then that's fair. As Hylia detonates into a bundle of sticks and toothpicks.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Last formal question here, sponsored by Francois via deleted scene and everything everywhere all at once. You said you kind of had Stranger function as a foreshadowing for your season 13 work. How do you feel that's gone? Do you feel like you've really set a bunch of groundwork that is going to be helpful, or is this just like a little fun peek behind the curtain and you're still going to have to start from zero in like a year and a half?
I think I've set some stuff in motion that I can, then use. I mean, I'm of course, gonna have to like explain the setting in the season that's coming up, right? But there's stuff there that'll be like, oh, this was kind of to an extent foreshadowed in the previous season. Not you wouldn't necessarily need to listen to 11 to get that, but you can see like the tracks of where that came from. But also, there's definitely going to be, a time skip between this and that season. So it also just gives me the room to be like, hey, maybe this thing I was setting up there, I don't really like it anymore. I'm just going to change it. It doesn't matter. It's been long enough. Everybody's dead.
Yeah. I love doing that too, where it's like, okay, these things I was teasing, they're still real, but this other thing, I'm bored of it now. Forget about that. I mean, the thing with the Numenon in the moon, I think, is one of the biggest things. That kind of came organically. Like, I think you can hear me kind of come to that on the episode where we first talked to Slater. That's one of the things I'm most excited about because it's also influenced my half of season 13, where I don't know if I've said this into a microphone, but there's also the neighboring country has a big cool sun to contrast your big cool moon. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to play with that. Is there anything else in particular you wanna like highlight as we got to work out on screen here?
So the moon is like 100% a piece of like serendipity. I always wanted to include something with it ever since we like talked about it during the post-mortem for 10. And I was writing in like stuff with it and its influence on the world around it. This season told me what exactly it is though and gave that context. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of perfectly fit into there. I do think Stranger is basically kind of foreshadowed at least part of, or I think said outright at this point, what the half of season 13 will be, and that'll be the type of people that would have come here to purge the island, potentially. That's the type of characters you're getting. The crack squad. Stranger was only here, maybe, I think I wrote this in the backstory, I don't know if he said it outright, because he was one of the few people in his home who would have the, like, I guess, foresight and willingness to examine a situation and not just burn the place down.
Yeah, I like we already touched on villain arc, but it is very funny to imagine, very early on, Stranger being like, actually, fuck this island. All these people gots to go, because the way I'm picturing the fear biome or whatever, it's like a lot of people who have very strong, scary opinions. It's funny we keep calling it the fear biome or the progress biome. Everyone in universe is like not sure about the names because out of character we haven't settled on names for things. That's I don't know how people feel about that. If that's like annoying or whatever.
Yeah, so you did suggest to me a name that I think we're going to go with, and out of like to myself, I was like, can I just fucking name this place? Like that's no one else has named it yet. What do I do? What do I do here? And then you were just like, what if it's called this? So I was like, sure, that works. You've saved me the effort at this point. But for that. I guess I would say part of what Stranger is trying to do. I'm not sure how much it's been talked about here yet. Is that he wants to change how his home is to an extent,
Yeah.
and that will also, give me the he's gone on and on about how dangerous it is. And events in this season will allow some of that to change to make it more of a playable environment that isn't just like, oh well, I guess we're all gonna die.
Yeah, there's a little bit, I think, coming up of Stranger talking to Harvest about, the home's approach to things and needing to be more open minded. But I'm excited for the audience to get there. Where we are now, there's like one dry and one wet arc left in the finale arc. So I think we can safely say that. There's like one more vibe check before the confrontation with White. I'm really excited about how all that works out. I think it's really fun. Is there anything else you want to leave people with? I think this has been a successful experiment. It turned out we did have, almost an hour of things to say about Stranger.
So I think there are probably some things. Well, let me ask you this, Austin. If you were making a little wet character to play as, what would it have been for the season? Like, what would your wet cowboy have been? Would you have just taken one of like, the wet NPCs that you currently had and used them, or would you have tried to like do something custom?
Oh no, I had a whole list of like sea creatures that I was interested in employing that I didn't get to all of them. So I mean, there was all kinds of Kuatoa or little creatures and stuff that I could have dipped into. So I don't even have the list up right now, but I definitely had other ones that I was thinking about. A good source of this is Pokemon because they have mined a lot of the best sea creatures. So if you're ever looking for like an underwater character, look at all the Pokemon that they've adapted. Let me see if I can pull this list up. I don't know if this is going to be interesting to hear me.
I think there are more water type Pokemon than any other kind of Pokemon.
I mean, I definitely could have been a K part because there's a lot of the cool different crabs. There's also a bunch of different sharks and squids and octopi that I could have been. I'm looking at my list now, and I eventually had a bunch of them just show up during the tournament. So it's just like a vampire squid would be cool. That character got 30 seconds of description, and then it was got their ass beat, stuff like that. So yeah, I think I probably would have highlighted some different cool fish, some stuff like that.
So from my end, I actually have a big what is it? Affinity for like sea monster models and miniatures. And I love the aesthetic of like aquatic like creatures, right? So there were two character ideas I had if I was on that side, right? One, I either wanted to play some kind of, going in with the Western theme, either moray eel or shark bounty hunter, whose, I guess, overarching goal would be he knows that someone he previously killed for a bounty is in the process of either being brought back, or their gang or posse or whatever is trying to bring them back. And that's an affront to his skills as a bounty hunter, so he's going to have to kill him again.
Damn, that would have been cool.
Or taking it in more of a, I guess, like, what would this even do angle? Since something we touched about was what happens if a living person goes through the well. I was considering a character hypothetically right at the start of the season. You know what a scrag is in D&D?
A scrag? No, I don't.
They are the aquatic trolls. There is a model I have sent you before. It's like pictures of it. It's called a Sea King from War Machine, and it's this huge aquatic troll. And I had this idea of like, what if my character was once like an incredibly powerful like sea monster with regeneration that was slain, and using the last of its regeneration only managed to grow back like a small body with no regeneration anymore to justify it being a player character, and all it wants to do is die and get brought back to its actual original form.
Whoa, that's so much. That's wild. I do like that idea because nobody, like on the team wanted specifically regeneration for themselves. So that would have been like a unique, motivation too. It's funny that I was trying to think of like different creatures that could be, and I was looking at the Pokemon, and I'm reminded of there's a creature called a sea spider. Are you familiar?
I believe so. Let me look up a picture just to remind myself.
They're not spiders, which is really frustrating.
Oh yeah, it's the spider crab.
They're really cool, but maybe I would have tried to do some kind of thri-kreen sea spider. Maybe it's not
Mhm.
worth explaining over and over what they are though, because the sea is so fucking annoying sometimes.
Mhm. How would Hylia have reacted or voted, I guess, in the vibe checks that she was not a part of?
Oh, which ones was I think right now the only one we've seen is General Oresa, right? Because she exploded after the ACH vibe
Ah,
check.
you're right. We haven't gotten to the next one yet.
Yeah, I think for General Reso that Hylia would have been pro her because it seemed like she was a selfless person trying to do what's best for others. Like I think in general she's anti-war. Like I think she would have maybe gone in with a bias against Reso, but spending time with her would have come to like her. I think is what happened there.
Mhm. Yeah, I love everything that Quinn has done. I think there's just so many things you could do with the like the vibe check concept. Like just first thing off the top of my head, just since you referred to war, like a war hero from some event in this setting, and then you have potentially the people lobbying for them to come back because they're the savior of this land, and the people that they killed being not necessarily as happy to see them come back for round two.
Yeah, I mean, we could have done a ton more vibe check. That's the thing. We could have done a whole season. We didn't even need to do half and half. A part of the reason I wanted to do half because I wasn't sure if people would like a whole season of underwater. Like some
Mhm.
people, it's the same thing with space, where some people are just like, I'm not interested in space. I'm not interested in underwater. And for those people in the audience, I was like, maybe we'll minimize that the exposure to that element. But in hindsight, we could have done a whole campaign of just the vibe check stuff. Quinn's really good at it, and it gives you so many different setups, basically for basically a self-contained episodic storytelling.
Mm. Yeah, and Quinn is one of the best GMs I've ever had. She does a great job. I don't think there has been a single episode that she's done that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, well, the audience hasn't heard the later ones when you and Quinn scream at each other and throw things, so they'll be excited for that one.
Well,
We should
yeah,
just
she
start
wanted.
rumors.
Yeah, she wanted to do an episode bringing back classic New Jersey villain Chris Christie, and I simply couldn't allow that to stand.
Yeah, that episode got very contentious. Well, after the edit, it'll seem perfectly nice and
Mhm.
normal. No one will ever know. Um,
I think that's pretty much it for Stranger. Really, I think compared to Buford, I have less things that I would have like changed or done differently. Like on like a second go around, Stranger's more like in line with what I originally had and what I've set out to do. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he's gone. And time's ticking down. People get your Stranger stocks before they're gone forever.
oh no, what happens when you stop playing Stranger? Does he die in the game? Does he
He
die
gets
in the
turned into
universe?
a patch that goes on the back of my spooky jacket.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you're the person who probably will end up with the most merch of your own character because you have so many pumpkins. All of them can be Stranger, as far as we know.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is there is only I think one model in my collection that could kind of fit as him. Really,
Oh.
he's got no legs. They always give him legs.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me, Dan. This has been fun. For the audience, $10 is the amount to get in the list that I read on this episode. And then starting next season, I'm gonna start naming NPCs after people I think at the $50 level or higher. So get in while the getting is good. I'm just gonna start the list and go down. So be excited to meet Joseph Tombrello, the elf, or whatever's going on there. I hope you like this. Let us know if you want more of these, or if we should. Maybe I'll interview Dan about what you think about Saint Cecilia or something. We'll get a really
Yeah, that'll
unconventional
be an
opinion.
interesting. What do I think about Saint Cecilia? Well, I guess Quinn won't remember it by now.
I'll interview Skitch about the genius of Grendel. We'll just really mix it up. No,
Hmm.
just let us know what kind of content you want to hear. So we do like an interview episode basically once a month. That's what I try to do. And I think this was fun, but let us know what you think. Also, Spew Punk. Dan, you were on the last one. You told me about a truly life changing show, MILF Manor.
Yeah,
My
and I told
word.
Joe to watch it with you, and she agreed.
She brought it up today, and I had to really mount every possible defense. I was at DEF CON 1. I was like, we cannot let that evil into our lives. But if the audience wants to hear that, just $1 on the Patreon to get Spew Punk. That's the show where we just ruin my life. We hurt my feelings, and we
Austin,
give me psychic damage.
It will greatly improve your life if you watch Bilf Manor. I guarantee.
No, listen. They don't know. They're not just milfs. Their sons are there. Please, it's so much worse than it sounds.
That's what makes it amazing.
It's awful. And also, we talk about Godzilla's heaving breasts. I'm sorry.
You sounded excited to say that as opposed to disgusted.
It's a very good episode. Dan, you and we did just a really entertaining crime, so hit that up. Patreon.com/Austin.
Can I close this off with a secret, Austin?
Well, it won't be a secret anymore, but sure.
Yeah, so I've been repeatedly called a man that makes characters that don't fuck. This is the part where I realized I once developed a porn game out of spite.
I'm sorry. Excuse me? Say more?
There was this. I'm going to shield myself a little bit from specifics here.
Okay, for legal purposes.
There was a porn game that accepted writer submissions, right?
Oh God.
There was a point where a lot of the portions of the audience were like, we're getting kind of sick of how the original creators are treating things, and they can be kind of assholes. I was like, all right, I'll try to write my own character for this. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Why am I wasting my time doing this for free for these assholes when I can just do it myself? And then I started developing my own game. And I was getting relatively good at what I was doing. But eventually, I ran out of free time to do it, as most things in my life happen. But, the people that were reading what I was putting out there seemed to like it. So there you go.
Wait, you were like Thanos putting on the glove, like, I'll do it myself?
Quite literally, yes. I got angry at the quality of the goon material out there and went, all right, I'll write it myself then.
I don't know enough about porn game development. The only one I know of that was people were submitting stuff to is Katawa Shoujo. If I found out you wrote that, I'm going to be very mad.
I would have been 12 at the time, I think, so okay. I can tell you that one wasn't me.
I don't like that we both know what that is. You also sent me, Austin, remind me next time we talk about one of my spit in my mouth anecdotes that's extremely Dan coded. Is that appropriate for this show?
I spitefully made my own game.
Okay, thank you. Spit in My Mouth is a spin-off show of Spew Punk that Quinn and I do where we talk about, there's no other way to say it, sucking and fucking. So
Quinn and I will have anecdotes for that in October because we're going to be going to a convention in New Jersey called Exotica.
Oh, God. No.
It has a face-sitting 101 course.
Step 1, face. Step 2, sit. What do you mean? I guess you got to breathing. You got to make sure they can breathe.
Well, you've already forgotten that step. They're dead. They're dead, Austin. Now for a second class, hiding the body.